I've got another quartet of independent horror films to share with you all. This is ML Miller Frights, Low Budget Binge, and let's start binging. Low Budget Binge is where we venture down the path less traveled and look at low budget, no budget, and sometimes international films that never get that top billing you see with the usual Hollywood fare. I'll indicate in the review down below where you can find these films along with their trailers. Here we go. Movie Theater Massacre is new on demand from Cranked Up Films. It's directed and written by Courtney. The employees of a small Detroit movie theater are quite sad that the theater will be closing at the end of the week. But on top of looming unemployment and quickly diminishing supplies like candy and toilet paper that won't be reordered, the part-time workers also have to deal with a masked killer who is murdering employees one by one. Movie Theater Massacre is a low-budgeter shot on an iPhone that has a heart of gold that you can see from a mile away. It's a film made out of love and despair that the theater-going experience may have been forever altered after the pandemic. It's a film made to bring light to the love of movies and the love of going to the movies that not everyone has, but if you do, then you're definitely a friend of mine, and this is definitely a film for you. So despite this film's flaws, Movie Theater Massacre has a whole lot of charm and heart and a big love for going to the movies. Unfortunately, this is a review and not an advert for the intention of Movie Theater Massacre, so for the sake of pointing out the bad with the good, I'm going to have to shift to criticism mode now. And unfortunately, Movie Theater Massacre is very dated. Not only because it references the pandemic heavily, and that was around 4 years ago, and honestly, no one wants to be reminded of those dark days. It's too soon. But this film is also dated because it feels like it was written by someone who really liked Clarke's and the rest of Kevin Smith's movies. This film is full of Smithian banter trying to be Tarantonian, but never getting to the slick and clever level of a Tarantino flick. And while I can't appreciate a nonsensical banter session between coworkers as much as the next guy, the trick is to make the conversation either A, funny, B, interesting, but most definitely C, intrinsic to the plot of the movie. None of that happens, sadly, as within the first 15 minutes, we're treated to basically the same conversation by two different sets of people talking about the demise of the movie theater industry. Once is good enough, but this conversation comes up basically throughout the entire film. It's what everyone is talking about, which I understand might be the case in the really real world, but you can't just have such repetitive moments in a movie that is supposed to entertain, as well as give a slice of life glimpse into the lives of employees of a closing movie theater. On top of the not-so-clever script, the story makes very little sense by the end. It feels like a movie that was very fun to make. It probably felt pretty good to film inside a theater, working for a cause and goofing off with a bunch of friends and like-minded people, but you've got to have some kind of sensical throughway going on in your movie. While the murders aren't necessarily scary, they are pretty brutal with the masked killer, all in black, stabbing folks with what looks to be a very retractable blade, and the blood does a-floweth. And while the actual massacre where the killer goes nuts on the crowd might have been interesting, the sweet and harmless tone of the film simply doesn't support it, especially since shootings in theaters is something to this day scares the hell out of people. To see it being treated so whimsically is pretty off-putting. Adding to the wonky tone is the fact that in the very next scene, people seem to forget that there are a pile of actual dead bodies littered in the theater right behind them, and everyone gathers around for another charming, heartwarming scene of movie theater appreciation. The corpses of their coworkers aren't even cold yet, and these guys are joking around like nothing has happened. On top of that, how the killer is taken care of and who the hell the killer isn't even answered. But the filmmakers were able to get Linnea Quigley to make a cameo as a spiritualist who makes house calls on a very short notice, and it was fun seeing LeJean Woods, who was last seen in Beazle and seems to be charting quite the horror resume these days. Watch this movie for the feels it gives. It doesn't deliver on a sensical plot or resolution, and even the murders aren't that good. But it will warm the heart, and I support the filmmakers for the wonderful intentions behind this movie, even if the final product wasn't my cup of popcorn. Next up is Call of the Void. It's new on demand and digital download from Gravitas Ventures. It's directed and written by James B. Cox. After the death of her brother, Moray, played by I, Tanya's Caitlin Carver, goes to a secluded cabin in the woods for some peace and quiet. But her solitude is interrupted when a group of kids in a rock band show up next door. Turns out the cabin is owned by a college professor who teaches one of the members of the band and has been investigating some kind of strange phenomenon in the woods. When Moray agrees to go on a hike, she realizes that this hiking trip is not normal and the band's intentions are not on the up and up. Vague synopsis? Yep. But Call of the Void is a vague movie. Very vague. The film offers up a bunch of details and a few visual cues involving images of something in space and then some kind of tree creature in the background, but for the most part, this film leaves it up to you to come up with what it is that is disrupting Moray's solitude. The film opens in a way reminiscent of 1978's Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and after the hike into the woods, everyone is walking around in a body snatcher-like trance state. But we're never really given anything like alien spores or pods or anything other than what might be contaminated water and what might be some kind of wilderness vortex. If you're the type that likes to know what the monster is and despises ambiguous films, Call of the Void is not going to be for you. Personally, I didn't mind the unanswered questions because the film does a good job of amping up the paranoia and giving off a sense of unease. Basically, we know just as much as Moray knows. We're a minor character in a major story of what might be the beginning of world domination. I kind of like this film as a sort of small storyline that feels like some kind of tertiary chapter in a much grander tale. Because the film does so well at communicating all of those off-kilter feelings, I didn't mind that I had all kinds of questions by the end. Writer-director James B. Cox and star Caitlin Carver convey the feelings of being left out of the team meeting extremely well. It's not a fun place to be in, and it doesn't make for one of the more comfortable watches, but because I understand that some of the best horror leaves things vague and comes from that feeling of staring into the deep, unfathomable abyss, I'm comfortable with the uncomfortability conveyed in Call of the Void. But I know there will be many who won't be cool with Call of the Void. I understand why. I could have used a little bit more of an explanation. It would have elevated the film from an art houser that relies on communicating a feeling to an actual story with a bit more rhyme and reason to it. Still, the horrors of the unknown are strong here with Call of the Void, and it was enough to entertain me, even if I was left scratching my head in the end. Call of the Void is worth taking a chance on if you prefer feeling a movie rather than understanding it. If you understand that difference, then this one might be for you. Dead Male is new streaming on Shudder. It's directed and written by Joe DeBoer and Kyle McConaghy. Dead Male tells the true story of a bloody letter that arrived at a post office in the mid-1980s and the horrifying events leading up to and resulting from that letter ending up at the dead letter office and in the hands of postal employee Jasper, played by Thomas Boykin. It's a sordid story unlike any other, involving a homeless facility, a visible man sculpture, a musical keyboard, a length of chain, a gallon of ice cream, and one bloody letter. If you're a fan of low-budget crime stories with hints of horror, high suspense, and quirk, then Dead Male is for you. One film that kept coming to mind while watching Dead Male was the Coen brothers' first film, Blood Simple. Like Dead Male, it's a film that feels ambitious, with big ideas that exceed the borders of the budgets. It's also about small crime with devastating consequences. The shock of Dead Male is that this is a true story. The twists and turns Dead Male takes are truly baffling. But because the film is so specifically quirky, involving a plan to make the perfect musical keyboard in terms of tone, pitch, and other sound qualities I don't know the word for, it's one of those plots that is so specific that it has to be true. The film brings to life some wonderfully elaborate, memorable, and strange characters. First and foremost, John Fleck plays one of the more diabolical villains you're going to see this year as Trent, a strange man with an odd appreciation for musical keyboards. The depths and lengths he will go to make the perfect one is downright disturbing. Fleck offers up a career-changing performance in this role, and be sure to be on the lookout for him to play more eccentric and evil characters in the future, I'm sure. The key to the effectiveness of this story of crime, punishment, and keyboards is the fact that everyone involved feels natural, as if these are not actors, but real characters you interact with every day. Your next-door neighbor, your mailman. Every performance, save for the diabolical and sometimes over-the-top Trent, is as natural as it can be. From the intense determination of postal detective Jasper, played by Thomas Boykin, to the sincere heroism of postal admin Anne, played by Mickey Jackson, to the desperation of the imprisoned keyboard technician Josh, played by Sterling Macer Jr. This is a film full of actors who are not big names now, but soon will be. The only actor I recognized was Susan Priver, who's a regular in Chad Farron flicks, most recently Unspeakable, Beyond the Walls of Sleep, and she does a solid job here. Now, Dead Mail might have a bit of pacing issues. The middle matter goes on a bit long and might be a tad repetitive as it leads up to a very fast yet oh-so-tense climax. Still, this is fantastic indie filmmaking that has that dangerous aura we saw come out of the grindhousey 70s and the indie-filled 90s. Maybe this will spark a new renaissance of memorable low-budget thrillers. I hope so. Whether it is a fluke or a harbinger of a new lo-fi era, Dead Mail is one suspenseful and unpredictable ride. FREWAKA.
Waka waka.
Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan.
Is new, streaming on Shudder. It's directed and written by Aislinn Clarke. After her mother's suicide, Shu, played by Claire Monelly, leaves her pregnant fiancée Mila to pack up her mother's apartment and goes to a temporary job to take care of an elderly woman because the couple needs the money. Shu arrives at the house of the elderly woman named Pig, played by Brittany Nikitan, and though she was under the impression that she was working with a stroke victim for a short period of time, Shu soon finds that Pig suffers from mental illness, specifically agoraphobia, hallucinations, and delusions that there are ancient beings from Irish lore out to get her. But the longer Shu stays with Pig, the more she realizes that these delusions may be all too real. While it takes its sweet time to get there, FREWAKA is a terrifying little folk horror filled with all kinds of unnerving imagery and paranoia so thick you couldn't cut it with the sharpest of knives. Reminiscent of the slow creep Polanski doles out in Rosemary's Baby, the signs are all around Shu as she gets comfortable in Pig's large house in the countryside. The neighbors give Shu sideways glances. The tree outside is decorated with strange ornaments. There's an annoying goat that keeps on popping up out of nowhere, and Pig herself speaks of something out to get her in her basement, adorning the entranceways of Pig's home with horseshoes and other totems meant to protect her from these creatures. And though Shu is skeptical, Pig makes a pretty convincing argument that something definitely is amiss. It all unfolds slowly, and while yes, I knew it was a horror movie I was watching and was expecting horror, I found myself intrigued to find out just what kind of horrors are tormenting this lonely elderly woman, or if there's anything at all, and both Shu and Pig are suffering from some kind of shared psychosis. I won't reveal which it is, but the answers are effectively terrifying. But you have to stick with FREWAKA.
Waka waka.
Wiggin' 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 whack!
To be rewarded with those answers and the escalating paranoia that unfolds from it. I know those who are used to more fast-paced modern storytelling will clock out of this one pretty quickly, as much time is taken to get to know Shu and Pig. Both of them present themselves as pretty unlikable characters, with Shu refusing to take part in packing up her dead mother's things and leaving it for her fiancé to do, and Pig being brassy and downright violent to Shu and anyone else who crosses her doorstep. Still, the longer you get to know these two seemingly different yet surprisingly similar characters, you find out just what made them such damaged people, and you begin to care. Claire Monelly is tough to get to know and tougher to like as Shu, but by the end, I was rooting for her. Same goes for Brittany Nikitan's Pig, as whether or not the monsters in her basement are real, she is a very sad and lonely woman. Most of the movie unfolds with these two characters in the middle of the frame as the terrifying things pile up around them, and they carry the film very well. The imagery that shows up in the nightmares, hallucinations, and in the really real world in FREWAKA
Waka waka.
are bone-chilling. Sure, the sack-headed stalker is always one of my favorite looks for a monster, but the ones that show up here take the cake. Add on some folksy reed stick masks and that creepy goat and an even creepier ginger kid, and you've got some moments that really are going to be burned into your brain pan. But sit back and relax with this one. It needs to simmer in order to be digested. I myself was getting a bit antsy at the halfway point, but thankfully, by the hour mark, things really get rolling into Nightmare Town and the chills start happening fast. There are some familiar beats in FREWAKA.
Waka waka.
This is a knick-knack, Patty Whack. Give the frog alone, his old man's a rolling stone.
If you know your folk horror, the ending is not really going to come as some surprise. It seems like all of these folk horrors end in the same way, but it's done confidently and has an effectively strong emotional punch by the end. Writer-director Aislinn Clarke also did the faux documentary found footager The Devil's Doorway from a few years back. I haven't seen that one yet, but after seeing how Clarke deftly orchestrates some great scenes of building tension and some downright nail-biting moments of sheer terror, I think I'll be checking that one out real soon. As is, if you have the patience, I think this Irish folk horror is going to burrow its way under your skin if you sit with it long enough. Well, there are 4 new indie horrors for you to check out. Let me know if you've seen them or plan to, or why you might be steering clear of them. Talk to me about it down in the comments. Please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside